Namaste and good morning, everyone. We'll start with the prayers. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Now Mahamrityunjay mantra 3 times together for praying for those who are in suffering. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकम् इव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Welcome everyone. We would be today covering a new topic, not exactly new topic because we have already covered Sandhi, Shabda Rupa and Dhatu Rupa in our previous classes, but today we will discuss a little bit more on Dhatu Rupa, that is verb forms. It seems like ages when we did the verbs last, and just to make sure that verbs keep themselves happy, they don't become upset with us, we'll look at verbs in a little bit more detail today. Before that, I want to chant the tables of our Rama and Gam, as well as I want to give an overview of the previous class. So our forms here. So the same format, I'll chant one row and you repeat after me. As I said, it is very important that you chant in this manner so that it gets committed to memory slowly. And when it gets committed to memory, you can start seeing the patterns, identifying the patterns. And that would give you an idea of the meaning because you would know which case and which number a particular form or which tense it belongs to. And that would help you. So we'll start as one row at a time. Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha. Ramam, Ramau, Raman. Ramena, Ramabhyam, Ramaihi. Ramaya, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah. Ramat, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah. Ramasya, Ramayoho, Ramanam. Rame, Ramayoho, Rameshu. He Rama, He Ramau, He Ramaha. Now we'll do it together. So I'll chant the whole table in a sequence, and you chant along with me if you can. Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha, Ramam, Ramau, Raman, Ramena, Ramabhyam, Ramaihi, Ramaya, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah, Ramat, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah, Ramasya, Ramayoho, Ramanam, Rame, Ramayoho, Rameshu, He Rama, He Ramau, He Ramaha. Now the forms of verbs. Gam dhatu. Again, I would repeat one row and you chant after me. Gacchati, gacchataha, gachanti. Gacchasi, gachatha, gachatha. Gacchami, gacchavaha, gacchamaha. Now the whole table together. Gacchati, gacchataha, gachanti, gacchasi, gachatha, gachatha, gacchami, gacchavaha, gacchamaha. So last time we did the Swara Sandhi and we covered the all aspects of Swara Sandhi, that is vowel Sandhi. So I want to show you today something. I want to share with you this chart, this flow chart. So this is a flow chart graciously put together by Yogacharya Amit Baba from Seattle. It is one of the best representations I have seen for understanding the Swara Sandhi or vowel Sandhi. So if you understand this, you understand pretty much in one page the whole rules of Swara Sandhi. I have also put it in our repository in the PowerPoint presentation. So I have updated that presentation file in the repository so you can actually access it from there, as well as in the class notes. But class notes, it's not so clear because the image is smaller in Google Docs. The PDF, the presentation file which I have put in, that is very clear. It's very good to print out from there, one page. So I'll just explain to you. So it is basically we are saying let the first vowel be F, second vowel be S. And the first question is F similar to S? And here I have written what is similar. So similar vowels are those which have a short and long counterpart, like A, Akara, Ikara, Ukara, and Rukara. And when something is in bracket, that means either short or long. That means the vowel could be either in the short form or long form. So A is the short form, A is the long form. So first is, if it is similar, then Dirgha Sandhi will take place. And the resultant would be Akara, Ikara, Ukara, Rukara. If the F is not similar to S, that means first vowel is not similar to second vowel, then we have to see what is the first vowel. So there are three possibilities. First vowel is Akara or Akara. First vowel is Ikara, Ukara, or Rukara. Or first vowel is the remaining ones, that is A, I, O, Au. So if it is ikara, ukara, rukara, it becomes yan sandhi. They correspondingly changes to yakara, vakara, rukara. If the first vowel is ekara, okara, or aukara, then we have to see whether the first vowel is a or o and the second vowel is akara, short akara. Here there is no bracket, so it will be just short akara. So if that is the case, then it becomes purva rupa sandhi. If that means if the first vowel is between a or o and second is akara. So flow chart, somebody, if you are seeing it too small, I would recommend you to actually see it on a, I mean, take hold this meeting on the bigger computer screen. I hope that would be beneficial, but let me present the parts of it, because I was thinking to put the whole thing in one screen, but I'll increase it so that you can see a little bigger. However, when you print it, it's very readable on a page, or if you see on a computer screen, it's very readable in a single page format. So if the first vowel is ekara or okara and the second vowel is akara, then the sandhi is purva sandhi. That means the first form, first vowel is retained and second is disappears. So A and O, and when second one disappears, we put this avagraha sign. If the first vowel is ekara, okara, and second is, I mean, if this condition is not met, that means all other conditions, then it is an ayadi sandhi. So A becomes I, O becomes av, O becomes av, and I becomes I. And yakara and vakara, they are optionally dropped, but generally in the text, yakara is dropped, vakara is not. Okay. And then here, guna sandhi. So if, what is the second vowel? First vowel is akara, and what is the second vowel? If second vowel is ikara, ukara, rukara, then it's a guna sandhi. If it is, second vowel is ekara, aikara, okara, or aukara, then it is vruddhi sandhi. So you see, this is thanks to Amit Baba. He has put in such a beautiful format that if you just can understand this one page, you basically cover all the sandhi rules. And this is exactly the flow chart which normally goes in your mind when you try to figure out which sandhi it would be. So this one, along with the class notes of the last class, which also was put together by Amit Baba, you will be able to understand the whole sandhi and will be able to do all the examples of the swara sandhi, the vowel sandhi. So with this, as I said, you don't have to worry about noting it down the flowchart. It's there in the repository, so you can actually access it from there. A question was related to verbs which I had asked last time in the prayers. So I had asked that saha na vavatu. What is the sandhi here? Saha na vavatu. So some of you did send me the correct answers. Thank you for your efforts. As you can see, this is av, and av actually happens when there is au. Au followed by akara. So akara remains unchanged here, and au becomes av. So it's a ayadi sandhi. So it is now. So the words are now avatu. So I'll write it down. What are the words here? So the word was So this is the one which actually is the sandhi. So the word is actually now plus avatu. Somebody asked, I can also split this long akara as the two short a, for example. Na avavatu. This doesn't make sense here. First of all, avavatu is not a word, and second, as I said, when you split a sandhi, the component words have to make sense. So now means V2 and avatu means it's a verb form which we have not studied yet. It actually means may he protect us. So we are praying to God here, may he protect both of us. Now means both of us, that means guru and disciple, teacher and student. Both, may he protect us both. So it is a prayer that it's a every combination of teacher student we say this prayer, and this is a very common prayer you might have heard when Guruji also takes classes. It normally is done in the starting, and it means may he protect us both together. Saha, if you see the word saha, which we have already used, it means together. Similarly, Tejasvi Navadhitam Astu. The same sandhi is here also. So you see av and it becomes au. Tejasvi now adhitam astu. Same word now, our. So may our studies be effulgent. So this was related to the prayer which I had asked some of you to try, because now we have studied these sandhi rules. And we'll come back to these prayers later as we study more rules to show that how to derive the meaning of these prayers. Now is the time to go to the verbs. So as I said, because we are going into different topics every day, we are learning something new. We did the verb forms some time ago, and it may seem like a lot of time ago. So I'll just a little bit quickly tell you that verbs are conjugated. So nominals are declined. This is just a technical terminology, and verbs are conjugated. In other words, verbs are put in the table 3 by 3. So if you look at gum table, which we chant every day in the starting of the class, that gum table is gacchati, gachatah, gacchanti. That means all the verbs will come in this 3 by 3 table format. And this 3 by 3 table consists of persons. There are 3 persons in Sanskrit, just like in any other language. The way it is written in Sanskrit, you first write third person, second person, and first person. And then there are 3 numbers, which most of the languages have 2 numbers, but Sanskrit has 3 numbers: singular, dual, plural. So first person would be always I. Gachami, if I just say gachami, and gam means to go, and it's a present tense, I know that the meaning of this word becomes I go, because it's a singular first person. If I say gachamaha, it's a plural first person, the meaning would become we go. So just a single verb form makes a complete sentence in Sanskrit. In order, as I told you, the verb is the central feature of a sentence in Sanskrit. And when we just have a verb, that alone is considered a complete sentence, and any sentence would have a verb form and one verb form. So this is another thing. You will not have 2 verb forms. They will become 2 sentences actually. So Sanskrit, 1 sentence, 1 verb form. You would find, however, in Sanskrit, in some cases, the verb form is not explicitly mentioned. It is implied. So there are sentences where there are complete sentences and you will not find a verb form. And in those cases, the verb form is implied. and we'll discuss those part later. But just want to let you know that verb is the central component of a Sanskrit sentence, and always one verb per sentence. So this was our gum table. And remember, there was one word which I had put in here, which I said I'll explain later, parasmai padi. So today we'll see what does this mean. So verb has endings. You remember we had this table of endings, ti, taha, anti. So a verb table actually is formed from endings. Those endings are of two kinds. One is parasmaipadi, which we saw, and another is atmanepadi. So these are the names on Sanskrit. Parasmaipadi is a certain types of ending. Just understand in this manner that there is a certain set of endings which is called parasmaipadi, and there is another set of endings which is called atmanepadi. This choice of words in Sanskrit is a little interesting, and here I'll show you these verb endings, how they look like. So these are the parasmaipadi endings which we saw. Ti, taha, anti, si, thaha, tha, mi, vaha, maha. And there is atmanepadi set of endings, which is te, ite, ante, se, ithe, dhve, e, vahe, mahe. So parasmaipadi, the word itself, parasmaipadi means the term or the word actually. The one full word is actually known as pada in Sanskrit. Parasmai means, if you take these two words apart, parasmai and padi, parasmai means for other. That's what parasmai. And atmane padi, if you again split here, atmane means for oneself. So originally, these verb endings were used, the parasmai padi, when you were doing the action for somebody else. And atmanepadi were being used when you were doing the action for yourself, for oneself. However, in practice, after the Vedic period, this distinction no longer holds. So whatever scriptures you would study, for example, Gita, Mahabharata, or Ramayana, most of the times this distinction does not hold. Any verb ending can be used for any purpose. Then you would say that why do we have two endings? That's how it has been retained. So even though the original meaning is kind of lost, the endings are remaining in practice. What does that mean is that we have to learn both set of endings, because when you study, for example, Gita, you would find the verbs which will take either of the endings. And in order to understand, you have to study both. If my purpose was only to write, I could have chosen just to use parasmaipadi, and not most of the verbs are available in parasmaipadi format also. So now the question arises, how do I determine, does every verb can take either ending? So no. So not every verb can take either of the endings. Remember I told you there is something called Dhatu Kosha, that is the list of all the roots. So verb is basically derived from the root. As you remember, there are 2000 roots in Sanskrit literature, and all of those roots can actually make a stem, and after the stem you put these endings, and these become the verb forms which are used in the sentences. So there are some verbs which are mentioned in Dhatu Kosha which take parasmaipadi endings. There are some verbs which take atmanepadi endings. So that part is mentioned in Dhatu Kosha, that which verb takes which ending. And then there are some verbs which can take both endings actually. So those verbs actually are called, I'll write the name here. They are called Ubhayapadi. Ubhayapadi. So Ubhayapadi simply means that there are certain verbs which can take both types of ending. That's all Ubhayapadi means. At one point, in one point, it will only take either kind of ending. So it will either take Parasmaipadi or Atmanepadi. And when we say both, it simply means that the same verb can take either of the endings. And you will find the examples of those and we'll discuss those. So just remember that even though there are only two types of ending, the classification becomes threefold. Some verbs only take Parasmaipadi endings. Some verbs take Atmanepadi endings. And some verbs take both the endings. So endings are not three types. It is just that verbs are classified into three categories as per whether they take first set of endings, second set of endings, or both. Now, in many of the books, you would find that this word has been translated as active voice. And this one has been translated as middle voice. And then there is another thing called passive voice. Now it can cause some confusion because in English, first of all, there is nothing called middle voice. And secondly, it seems like it's a different voice, but it's not actually. So active and passive, if you know in English, they are formed different sentences. So if I am telling an example, I'll take care of you. And then the passive sentence would be, you will be taken care of by me. By me is implied or explicitly expressed. So that becomes active and passive formation in English. So active would be, I'll take care of you. And passive sentence will be, you will be taken care of by me. Now, in active and middle voice, there is no such difference actually. And that's why I wanted to make sure that if when you read the books and you see this terminology, you understand. They both are formed exactly the same way. It is just the difference of ending. However, when passive voice is there in Sanskrit, that actually does form the sentence in completely different way, just like in English. So when you read this terminology, and that's why I'm not too much in favor of using this terminology called middle voice. It sometimes can cause confusion. Both are equally active voice actually. It is just different set of ending. So whatever the terminology you use, as long as you understand the concepts, it's okay. Concept is that there are two different set of endings and the verbs are formed or the sentences are formed exactly the same way, whether you use this set of ending, Parasmaipadi endings or Atmanepadi endings. In our class, we'll use these words, Parasmaipadi and Atmanepadi, just because they are very clear and very distinctly and clearly defined. So we'll go a little bit more detail, what are these endings and how to form these words. So these are our endings. So you see ti, taha, anti, and this is an example. Gachhati, gachhatah, gachanti. We all are very familiar with this example. The root is gam, meaning is to go. It's a parasmaipadi type of ending. It's a present tense, and lat is another name of present tense. We'll see later. But it's a parasmaipadi dhatu, parasmaipadi root. It's a present tense Gam means to go. Gachati, when I say, you understand based upon the ending, it's Parasmaipadi and it's a third person singular. How does Atmanepadi look like? Atmanepadi look like very similar actually. So there is this root called love. Love is Atmanepadi dhatu. As I said, there are certain roots which are classified as Parasmaipadi, certain roots which are classified as Atmanepadi, and certain roots which take both the endings, they are called Ubhayapadi. Ubhayapadi, Ubhaya means both. So that's why it's called Ubhayapadi. Love, so Gam is actually Parasmaipadi dhatu, that it does not take Atmanepadi endings. Love is Atmanepadi, it does not take Parasmaipadi endings. So if I have to make with love, you see it actually works in the very same way. Labhate, labhete, labhante, labhase, labhethe, labhadhve, labhe, labhavahe, labhamahe. You just put these endings. And here the meaning also remains the same. Labhe, for example, if I say it's a first person, singular, love means to gain, I gain, or I attain, or I obtain. That is love. Similarly, if I say labha mahe, it's a plural, we gain or we attain. So the meaning, the way meaning is, it is just the endings are different, the structure, the meaning, the person, the number, everything remains the same. So what we will do now, we will actually form for a verb which is Ubhayapadi, which takes both the endings. So we'll choose the verb called bhaj. So the verb would be, for us, would be bhaj. So bhaj is the root. It means to serve, to worship. That bhajana, we say bhajana, bhajan, that is coming from this root, bhaj. And it is a ubhayapadi dhatu. It's a ubhayapadi dhatu. Ubhayapadi means it will take both set of terminations. Both set of terminations. That's what Ubhayapadi means. So we'll see how does it work. Okay. So we'll see in the first in the Parasmaipadi. So first we have to make a stem. You remember, directly on the root we do not do that, and we make a stem. How do we make a stem? This is how to make the stem is actually an advanced Sanskrit course. So we will not learn how to make the stem. I just want to show you that if I so this becomes the stem. Bhaja. Bhaja becomes the stem. If you look at here, this is akaranta stem, ending in a, akaranta. What that means is that based upon the rule of making the stem, this stem is ending in akara. There are other rules for other verbs where the stem doesn't end in akara. What akara does when the stem ends in akara, it makes it very simple actually to apply these endings. When it does not end in akara, there are certain complications in making the endings. Now the good news is that there are a good number of verbs, more than half actually, in Dhatu Kosha, out of 2000, more than half, where the stem is actually end in akara. So if you know the stem, you can pretty much derive both of these forms, Parasmaipadi and Atmanepadi, very easily, if you know the stem. However, there are some verbs which are very common in usage, where the stem does not end in akara. And because they are so common, we have to study those also. And there you will find that even though the endings remain the same or similar, but the way those verb forms are made, they may look a little bit more complex. And we will study those later. Now for us, this is my root, bhaja. So here if I add, if I'll take this Parasmaipadi ending and I'll copy them here, make it bigger so that we can actually apply these rules and see how can I make the verbs. Even though you have already studied Parasmaipadi endings, I have already showed you, but just so that it becomes clearer, we'll do it again. For bhaja, as I said, bhaja is ubhaypadi, it takes both sorts of step terminations, so I would be able to make for both. So here it's very simple. I'll basically do stem plus ending, and the ending is T. And that would become bhajati. It's actually very simple. Bhajati. It's just you end actually here. Bhajati. And then I'll end the same thing here, and it becomes so I'll copy from here. I'll paste it here. Sorry. So bhaja plus taha, it becomes, actually you can literally add it up here. There is nothing is happening actually. Bhaja taha and bhajataha. And then here the same thing, bhaja plus anti. Now here it doesn't seem very straightforward because we have already studied Sandhi rule, and Sandhi rule says akara followed by akara becomes akara. So it seems like when I combine these two words, it should become bhajanti, not bhajanti. But we also know from our study of gum root that it's actually gam gachanti, so it should be bhajanti. So what is going on here? So this is again, there are multiple rules when we make these verb forms, and Panini states one rule that, well, in this case, it will not become akara plus akara will not become akara, it will remain akara. So that is just a rule stated by Panini, and we study those rules in quite advanced Sanskrit classes actually, not even like level 2 or level 3 maybe, but or even higher than that. So we study all those rules, that how to make these forms, how to make the stems, and what all exceptions are there. So right now you just understand that yes, we studied this rule, bhajanti, so bhaja and anti, and it seems like it should become bhajanti, but no, it actually becomes bhajanti. So just to understand that despite that Sandhi rule, there are many other exceptions which take place when we make these verb forms. So this is one of those cases. So bhajanti. Okay. So this is again very simple actually. Bhajasi. So bhaja plus C, it would become bhajasi. So here there are no complications. Same thing here in bhajatha. Sorry, not C. Bhajatha would becomes bhajatha, and this is the same way it would become bhajatha actually. So it will become bhajatha. Now here I have bhaja plus this me, and it becomes, so now it seems that if I follow the same logic, it should become bhaja me, but we know from our it seems like it should become bhajami, but we know that it's actually not bhajami, it's actually bhajami, gachami. bhajami. So we know that. How does it become like that? Again, Panini states the rule here that when these prefixes are there, suffixes are there, and the rule says basically that based upon certain starting letters, then the previous letter gets elongated. In this case, A becomes elongated into A, so it becomes bhajami. As I said, we will not study those rules. They are not. This is a beginner's class, and those are quite advanced topics. Just to let you know that there are many rules, exceptions to the rules, though exceptions to those exceptions which Panini mentions, which are applied when we derive these forms. So the questions would naturally come, and I just want to tell you that there are certain rules. It's not that we are making a mistake here. There are certain rules because of which it becomes bhajami, not bhajami. So the way it would become bhajami. And it becomes bhajami. Same way here. Bhaja plus vaha, it becomes bhajavaha. And here the same way it would become bhajamaha. I'm just doing the copy and paste. It's a little faster. Bhajamaha. Bhajamaha. So you see how easy it is actually to make the forms, particularly for those stems which end in a, as long as you know the stem. And in the dictionaries, when you see this root, for example, bhaj, also it gives you this form, third person singular form, bhajati. So you generally, and bhajati is not available as an independent entry in the dictionary, but when you see bhaj, it normally is there that what is the singular form of the third person. And once you know this form, you can pretty much derive the whole table. That is the idea. So that's why they give you this form under this root. Now we will see how to do the Atmanepadi. Same logic. So we'll take this table, make it a little bigger, and we'll do the same root, bhaj. So the stem remains the same. There is no change in the rule of stem. So whether it is Atmanepadi or Parasmaipadi, stem remains the same. And we will have the same stem, but we will have different endings. So here, bhaja plus becomes bhajate. Here bhaja plus ite becomes. So now you know these sandhi rules. We have already studied these sandhi rules. Akara plus ikara. And because Amit Baba put together this beautiful chart, we'll just look at it just to see that how useful this one is. So you see that they are not similar vowels, and the first vowel is akara, and the second is between ikara, ukara, rukara. So it's a guna sandhi. A plus e becomes a, and here a plus ikara, akara plus ikara becomes ekara. So it becomes bhajete. I'll write Devanagari later on. So same thing here. It's a bhaja plus ante. It should become bhajante as per the rules, but again the same exceptions apply here. So it's a bhajante, not bhajante. And here we have bhajase. Here it would become it is a very similar kind of suffix here, ite, ithe, and it becomes bhajethe. Akara, same, akara, ikara becomes ekara. And this will become so this actually has no difference, just you add the suffix here. So bhaja plus dhve becomes bhajadhve. Here is just adding the ikara, and again we know from the rules of sandhi, it's actually a small ikara, short e. So the same sandhi would apply here, and it would become bhaje. And before these suffixes, vahe and mahe, it elongates, like bhajavaha and bhajama. So it becomes, I'll take from here. So it becomes bhajavahe and it becomes bhajamahe. Bhajamahe. Okay. I'll quickly write Devanagari once also, and then when we take the advanced Sanskrit course, we will not do both the scripts so that it will become faster and easier. Here, sometimes it takes a longer time for me to try to accommodate both the scripts. So those who are interested, please learn Devanagari, who want to learn the advanced Sanskrit classes. So here we'll just chant once these forms so that you can have kind of an idea that how are they pronounced. So the same way, I'll chant one row and you repeat after me. Bhajate, bhajethe, bhajante, bhajase. Sorry, it becomes te. There is a mistake here. Bhajte, bhajete, bhajante. Bhajase, bhajethe, bhajadhve. Bhaje, bhajavahe, bhajamahe. So these forms, and you look at these forms, bhajami exactly has the same meaning as bhaje. So I can actually use them pretty much interchangeably. Even though the original intention was bhajami would be used, it's a parasmaipadi when I do for others. So when I'm doing the worship for others, then I use bhajami, and when I do it for my sake, I'll use bhaje. But as I said, in practice, this distinction no longer holds. So if I say bhajami or bhaje, meaning is the same. I can say bhajamaha or bhajamahe, it's the same meaning. Same structure of sentence, same meaning. Then you would say that in case of, and this only applies when the dhatu is ubhaypadi, means it is taking both sets of terminations. In that case, it is a choice of the author that which one to use, because the distinction is kind of lost, that it is for other or it is for oneself. So with this, I'll take the questions related to this topic. So there are already some questions people have sent, and if you have any questions related to this particular part, I'll take those questions. So most of the questions which you are asking, I think they were just asked before I explained. One question is, what is difference in meaning for active and in middle voice? And I explained there is no difference in practice. Another question is, can you please clarify where sandhi applies and where there is a rule for ending? I'm not sure. I already explained where the sandhi apply here. Bhaja, ite, bhajete, akara, ikara. And here sandhi applies, but there is an exception to that sandhi where it becomes previous akara plus akara actually remain akara. They do not become akara. So it remains akara because of another exception rule which applies to this particular form. So I hope it is clear where we are applying the sandhi. It is akara plus ikara, ekara. So that's the sandhi there. Then question is, if there are two or more sentences in a topic, can parasmaipadi be used in a sentence and atmanepadi for use or for the same ubhayapadi verb in the next sentence? Probably this is not common to do so. It's actually not very uncommon. It is possible to do, and it is okay to do. That you can, sometimes even in the same verse, you might find that parasmaipadi and atmanepadi dhatu is being used. I cannot find the PPT in the drive. I'm not sure if the information that I can see is actualized. I'll show you where is the PPT on the drive. Just so if you go to this drive, Sanskrit class for beginners, And if you go to other study material, and here is the presentation, this one, presentation file, 15th April. So this is updated today. So you can find it here in this file. Okay. So another question is bhaje. Why not with long a bhaje? Why should it become long a? I do not understand. Bhaja is the base, the stem, and ikara. So akara plus ikara becomes ekara. I would request you to make sure that you are very familiar with Sandhi rules. Even though there are exceptions, but at least you should know the rules. And then we can see where the exceptions are. There is a question, is the ending often chosen for poetic value? Maybe or may not be. It, as I said, it depends upon the author. There is a question, Swamiji, when are we going to do the email questions? I intend to do some of them today. We'll see how much time is there. Otherwise, maybe next class I'll earmark half an hour specifically for email questions. Question, are there finite set of dhatu that are ubhayapadi or atmanepadi? Yes. The whole dhatu kosha, that's only 2000 dhatus. So that itself is very finite. And within that, we have this categorization, whether it's parasmaipadi, atmanepadi, or ubhayapadi, means whether it takes first set of endings, second set of endings, or both set of endings. How do we learn which dhatu is ubhayapadi? I said you have to look it up in the dhatu kosha. Dhatu kosha is the guide for telling us which dhatu takes which endings. Question is there. I did not catch why we could not recognize some verbs in the scripture. Is it because of Atmanepadi? If it is because of Atmanepadi, now you should be able to recognize. Question, what can be the example of Atmanepadi? I just gave the example, bhajate, that is an example of Atmanepadi. I'll also show you exactly how does it appear in Gita. There is a question, where the long coming from first person, dual and plural? I already explained plural, it's not in dual. Long is not coming in dual. It's only in plural that long should be coming but does not come. So it should have become bhajante as per the Sandhi rules we know, but it remains bhajante because of the exceptions which applies here. The question, how do you know where to pronounce the accent or emphasis? There is no accent or emphasis in classical Sanskrit. That means the Sanskrit we are studying, there are no accents actually. Why is the question? Why is ending called padi, not pada? Verb actually dhatu, that kriya, that is actually feminine. That's why it's called padi, not pada. Atmane padi, parasmai padi. As I said, in Sanskrit, the gender is more related to the word than the object. So because of that reason, it is called parasmai padi, atmane padi dhatu. Question, Sahana Babatu is spelled as separate words, but when we chant, it is run together. I don't understand this rule. Generally, you would find that there is a very small space between the words when we chant. If you pay enough attention, you should be able to notice some difference. the question, I am a little confused about Atmanepadi, talk about self, versus first person, also talk about self. So please do not get confused. It is, as I said, Atmanepadi, it is used traditionally. That was the tradition which no longer is observed, when the verb is used when the action is done for others' sake. But now if I say bhajate, that means saha bhajate, or he worships. So bhajate means he worships. That's what. So same, bhajati or bhajate, the meaning is the same. So you can understand, for all practical purpose, the meaning remains the same whether we use parasmaipadi or atmanepadi. And I already explained why bhajavahe and bhajamahe, the akara becomes long because of a certain exception which applies to these particular suffixes. So the question is, for verbs, usually we give the root and the third person singular. In case of bhaja, which one would you give? Good question. So when you see the bhaja entry in dictionary, it will show you that it's both parasmaipadi and atmanipadi. It means it will show you it's ubhaypadi, and it will give you the ending for both. It will tell you bhajati and bhajate. So it will actually have both entries generally. Okay. So with these, the questions are over. There are certain examples from Gita which I'll cover after the, so I'll give you an exercise. These are certain examples I'll take after the break. And right now I want to give you this exercise which you can do for yourself. And the exercise is this. It's also posted in the drive, exercise 20 class. So you can either get it from the drive or you can look at the screen here. This is the exercise here. That please write on paper the present tense forms along with the meaning based upon the following set of terminations. So the dhatu is yaj, which means to worship or to perform fire ceremony. So the word yajna is coming from the same root, yaj. It means to worship, to perform fire ceremony. Stem is yaja, and you have to make the forms for both. It's a ubhaypadi dhatu. That means it takes both terminations, parasmaipadi and atmanepadi. So exercise is that you make both sets of terminations and also write the meaning. Like bhajati, if you, yajati, he worships, yajate, he worships, like this. So this is your exercise. Right now it is 10:06. We'll meet at 10:20. Okay. Welcome everybody. Welcome back. I hope you were able to do without any difficulty these two tables. There was one question that here the stem is ending in akara, bhaja. So these endings which we studied, ti, taha, anti, te, ante, do they only apply when the stem is akarant? So these endings, parasmaipadi and atmanepadi, these apply for all the stems, whether akarant or not, but sometimes there are like exceptions. So you will see some change in forms. And these are, remember, these are only for present tenses. So for other tenses, which we have not studied yet, the endings would be different. So this is for present tense. And particularly for parasmaipadi, the exceptions are less than atmanipadi. But the endings, you will find similar endings for all other stems. It is just that when the stem is akaranta, it is very easy to apply. You know immediately that how to make the forms. And as I said, you would be able to identify a multitude of forms because more than half the verbs in the whole dhatu patha, they are actually having the stem which is akara. So now Now I'll give you some examples from Gita. Okay. So I have mentioned the verbs here, the verse number. You can actually look it up later, and we will include these in the notes so that you know that where the verbs are. So in the verse 1:7, you see brabimi. Now here it is of the same form as bhajami, even though it's not exactly bhajami. So that's where I said the me form, the suffix me, that actually is kind of give away that it's a first person singular in present tense, even though because of the verb and the stem being different, here the verb is happens to be brew. Just to let you know, it's brew. Brew means to say, to speak, to, so I speak, that's what it would mean, bravi me. So even though because of the ending you may not find exactly the very same form, yet it will help you to a certain extent that because we know the endings, that it is the, and by practice you will know more. Awake che. Now this one you see, awake che, from the bhaje, we have this bhaje, awake che. How do I know? Again, as I said many times, you will know by practice, because this kind of ending you will find in many other places. How do you know that this is verb form? It is a matter of practice. More practice, more exposure to scriptures, you will know better. So awake che means I see. I awake che. So the meaning is the same, whether it is Atmanepadi or Parasmepadi. As I said, the meaning is the same. So it's not a different meaning because you are using Parasmepadi versus Atmanepadi. Sidanti, it is like same as Gachanti. Sidanti, first person singular, third person singular. Parishushyati, this is also third person singular. This is plural, third person plural, sidanti, third person singular. So once you are very familiar with the endings, you would be able to identify the verb forms easily. Jayate. Now you see jayate. This is bhajate. Jayate. This is the Atmanepadi, third person singular. It is born. Jayate means it is born. So I'm not discussing a lot of meanings here, but just want to tell you, like, some of the other words also you would start noticing here. Gatrani. Remember we discussed the neuter form, karmani, gatrani, plural. First case plural. So sidanti, it is the plural form of the verb. It comes with gatrani. Gatra means limbs. So limbs are shaking, sidanti, or limbs are becoming lifeless. Srasate, you see this verb form, srasate, it is the same as bhajate, srasate. So third person singular, Atmanepadi. Paridayate, again, Atmanepadi, third person singular. Shaknomi, bhajami. So even though it's not ami, and that's why I wanted to tell you the suffix is mi, not ami, is shaknomi. It is still it is another dhatu which does not have the stem ending in akara. That's why you do not see akara here, but it's still a first person singular form. Brahmativa. Now here it will give you some idea of the sandhi. Brahmativa, brahmati iva. It's a dirgha sandhi. So as you can see, Brahmativa, the different concepts as we study, they start coming together actually. So Brahmativa, it is two words, Brahmati plus Iva, Brahmativa. Brahmati, now it is the verb form. We know it is a verb form, Brahmati. Third person singular. Then I wanted to bring out your attention here. Bhajami and bhajate. Here it is bhajate. So in Gita, the same root which we discussed actually, bhaj. Bhajami is the first person singular of Parasmaipadi, and bhajate is actually Atmanepadi, third person singular. And in Gita both are used, but the meaning doesn't change. Bhajami means I worship or I serve, and bhajate means he serves or he worships. So whether it's bhajati or bhajate, the meaning remains the same. So I just wanted to show you that how you can start identifying verb forms in Gita. And one thing here, as you see this word called paridahiyate. So pari, this is called upasarga. These are upasarga or prefix. So these are the, you can say, verbal prefix. These are used to change the meaning of the verb. We will study in more detail later, but I just wanted to let you know that you will see, and in this form, sometimes there are more than one upasarga, and there are finite number, they are like 22. So 22 upasargas, and they change the meaning of the verb to which it applies. So parishushyati, same here, parishushyati. And you will even avekche, the actual word here is ikche. So ava ikche, avekche, ava is a upasarga here, prefix. So don't worry about it too much, just understand that these are upasargas here, and we will discuss later as the time permits, because to discuss actually the meanings of upasarga and how it changes, it is normally done in the advanced class. We are in the beginners class. So for now, I just want to give you this idea that there are upasargas of verbal prefix, which are 22 in number, and they change the meaning of the verb to which it applies. For now, you can just understand that part. So this was related to the identifying the verb forms. I want to show you the exercises for the homework. So there are two of them. Exercise 21. This I want, just like I showed you in Gita, here I want you to identify from Gita 15th chapter. Let me increase the size here a little bit. Gita 15th chapter, that how many verbs can you identify in the present tense? So only the present, because we have only done the present tense so far. So you will prepare this table. I have given you one verb, for example. So what's number, word verbal form, nivartanti. What is the tense, which is going to be present, because that's what we have studied so far. Verb type, whether it's parasmaipadi or atmanepadi. You will just write whether, because, and even though if verb is ubhayapadi, at any given verb form, it would have taken either parasmaipadi or atmanepadi ending. So you will just write parasmaipadi or atmanepadi. Person is, you will write first or second or third person, singular, plural, or dual number, and the root. So these two columns are optional, root and meaning. You can make a guess, and as I showed you this website, you can actually see in this website what is exactly the root. And when there is a prefix, the upasarga, just write it like this. And the meaning, again, you can take the help of this website. And you can always verify. So first you write yourself, make a guess, and then you can verify whether your guess is correct or not. So this website kind of gives you the solution also to that which are the verbal forms. You can look it up there. So this is one exercise, and the other exercise is you would write the this can be done on paper or computer again, and you will write the forms love, pach, nash or save. These forms you will write the based upon these endings, just like you did for the class exercise. Do it for, so when the verb is ubhaypadi, write both endings. Otherwise I have written whether it's parasmaipadi or atmanepadi, and I have given you the stem. So write accordingly that ending. So this is your 2 exercise. I'll quickly see if there are any questions you have related to this exercise, or we'll do the close prayer. So yes, somebody is asking bhajamyaham, there is a sandhi, yan sandhi, that is correct. And yes, sandhis would be applicable, so you would actually see the sandhis. Vartante is an example of atmanepadi. Yes, it is an example of atmanepadi. Labhante, you will see the endings. Verb, the question is verb example endings in A could be confused with nominals. How to distinguish? As I said, by practice, there is no magical band for you to figure out which is verb ending, which is noun ending. Many times they would be confusing, and many times it is the purpose of the poets to confuse you. So more you practice, more you would be able to figure it out. There is a question, could you please give less homework? I would request you to do as much as you can, because many people find it very useful to do more homework. It helps them to clarify the concept. So today there is no chapter of Egenes' book for you to do, just these 2 exercises. So there should be less. This should be less anyway. I would recommend you though that please study. You don't have to solve, because there are more topics in Egenes' book. If you can just study the chapter 9, that would help you to understand some concepts, and also in the next class. So you don't have to solve the exercises right now, because we have not studied the whole chapter, whatever he covers in chapter 9. But whatever you can, that would help, at least you try to study. So with this, we'll do the closing prayers. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। Thank you everyone.